Welcome to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, we've got lots of news we're about to run down for Friday. Yes, it's finally here. It is just after 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern. Not sure where you're watching from, but maybe drop a comment below. Let us know where you were watching from. And good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, delivering the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming partner, Trump Daily Post. Tonight's rundown begins with the high-stakes national security deliberations at the White House, followed by a new America 250 initiative from Second Lady Vance, and then the president's schedule as the administration heads into the weekend. Now, the biggest development today is foreign policy. The White House's focus has been on President Trump's push for final determination on the emerging deal with Iran, and according to the latest official direction coming out of the White House, the president headed into the Situation Room as the administration weighs a framework centered on the one unshakable American demand. Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. The administration has also made clear that the Strait of Hormuz must reopen immediately and unconditionally with no tolls as broader talks continue over shipping lanes, oil flows, and nuclear restrictions. Vice President JD Vance has said that the two sides are very close, but as of this report, no final readout has been released. Now, the White House has also continued highlighting results on domestic priorities. The president signed H.R. 3497, the Medal of Sacrifice Act of 2025. He signed it into law on May 28th, creating a new national medal to honor law enforcement officers and first responders killed in the line of duty. The administration is also continuing a strong public push for the new Trump Accounts program, a tax-advantaged investment initiative for children born between 2025 and 2028, with a $1,000 federal seed deposit for each eligible child and a full public launch set for July 4th. At the same time, the White House has kept up its law and order messaging by promoting its new immigration enforcement site, spotlighting ICE arrests and border security actions. And from the Pool report, there were no significant changes to the president's public agenda today. The print pool was told this morning that any press access opportunities would be announced if they develop, but as of the last update, there were no additional scheduled changes. The White House also said that Second Lady Vance, working with the National Endowment for the Arts, announced the student winners of the Bookmark Design Challenge, celebrating America's 250th. The nationwide contest invited students in grades K through 8 to create original artwork reflecting their view of America, with winning entries from California, Florida, and Georgia. The winning designs will be recognized at the Great American State Fair from June 25th through July 10th. The Second Lady said the effort is meant to inspire both creativity and patriotism as the nation approaches its 250th anniversary. According to the daily guidance, the president's Friday schedule included some executive time in the morning, an intelligence briefing at 11 a.m., Oval Office policy meetings in the afternoon, and time set aside to sign executive orders at 3:30 p.m. All of today's events were closed to the press, and the weekend guidance shows executive time at 8 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday, with no additional public events currently scheduled. So taken together, the last 24 hours show a White House focused on strength abroad, order at home, support for American families, and a steady presidential schedule that's centered on intelligence, policy, and results. And that's the latest from the White House tonight. Now let's turn from Pennsylvania Avenue to the other major stories driving the day across the country. So welcome to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, that's our White House rundown for you. We got a lot of news we'll be tracking throughout this broadcast, and we're glad you're here. You know, yesterday we spoke about the weaponization, the Anti-Weaponization Fund. Well, it looks like that is hitting some judicial roadblocks. We'll be talking about what's going on there. And as you know, President Trump is beautifying Washington, D.C., making it more beautiful than ever. And, you know, you just can't, the left just can't have that. No, they cannot permit a beautiful Washington, D.C., especially when it's Donald Trump making it more beautiful than ever. So we've got lots to break down on the beautification of our nation's capital. and the left's over-the-top reactions. We're also going to talk about exactly what's going on in Iran and what happened in the Situation Room today. We've also got more information on that insane fraud out of Minnesota. Yes, Tim Walz shaking in his boots because the the noose is tightening on all of the criminals there in Minnesota. We just hope. See, there are some arrests that are happening, but you and I both know exactly which arrests we want to see. All right, some of these low-level fraudsters, yes, the ones that are getting busted for $21 million or $2 million or whatever. Yeah, I mean, those are, it's not low-level fraud, but we want to see the big names going down, right? We want to see Walz, Omar, Ellison. Can we start with them? And then maybe we can work our way over to Pritzker and Newsom, right? But we're finding out that this autism fraud that has been occurring, you know, it's not just in these daycares, but it's also with these fake autism centers. Yeah, there's a massive crackdown that's happening nationwide. We're going to get into that. Also, we got some new developments on that CIA gold bar story. We touched on it yesterday in combination with Tulsi Gabbard's resignation and some of the things that she has been unfolding and of course, what she'll be revealing before her departure in mid-June. But this new CIA story is really, really interesting. I mean, we're talking, like $20 million in gold bars. And I think it really reveals a deeper problem, a deeper rot at the CIA. I mean, if this guy's caught, how many others are doing it, right? And then some very troubling news out of the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett, she was swatted just recently. And I think we've actually got the 911 call that initiated the whole thing, plus several of the different news outlets covering the topic. We're going to get into all those details in this Between the Headlines segment. So we're happy you're here. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you, if you're watching on X, if you're watching there, go ahead and hit that reshare button. Send it out to your feeds. If you're watching at Trump Daily Posts, welcome. I'm Gary Franchi. I'm with the Next News Network. I'm a chief White House correspondent, and I'm glad that you're joining us as well. But most importantly, check out our YouTube channel. That's where we publish most of our content. We have millions of followers over there, and we'd love to have you engage with us on YouTube. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. And we are going to jump into our first story. All right, let's go, Brian. Tonight, the real war in Washington is no longer over whether the federal government was weaponized against Americans. President Trump's already forced that question on the center stage. The new fight is even bigger. Should the victims of that abuse be compensated at all? The federal judge has now stepped in to freeze President Trump's $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund before the money can move, before the claims can even be processed, before the apology and accountability phase can even begin. And it tells you everything, because when the system panics at restitution, it's admitting the abuse is too dangerous to formally recognize. So who is really being protected here? Now let's be very clear about what this fund is and why the establishment is so terrified of it. See, the Trump administration created the Anti-Weaponization Fund to give Americans targeted by the former Biden-Garland Justice Department and other government actors a path to seek compensation, accountability, and even a formal apology. And according to the RNC briefing that I received in statements from the Vice President JD Vance, this is not just for Trump supporters. Republicans can apply, Democrats can apply. Anyone who believes they were hit by political lawfare can apply. Christians, pro-life activists, veterans, conservative influencers, senior citizens, ordinary citizens whose finances, reputations, and families were wrecked by a weaponized bureaucracy. See, that's why this battle matters so much. The resistance is not really about the money that Washington burns through, more than $1.8 billion without blinking. The real panic's over what compensation would mean, an official admission that the government abused its power, targeted Americans, and now owes them redress under President Trump. And while we're talking about who controls America's future, there is another breaking story that you need to hear about. This breaking news on America's critical mineral supply chain, the SAGA metal story, just got stronger, and this is a national security issue. Less than 48 hours ago, SAGA released new information suggesting its radar project may be sitting on one of the largest titanium and vanadium systems on the planet. SAGA Metals is trading as SAGMF in the U.S., SAGA in Canada. Now, to understand the scale, you got to compare radar to China's Panxinhua deposit. See, that's Chinese state-linked system. It's valued in the multi-billion-dollar range. It's also responsible for over 40% of global vanadium supply. So what does it mean when you have SAGA Metals coming up with something even bigger? See, that should get Washington's attention very, very fast. Check out the in-depth interview with the CEO I did on this topic just a few weekends ago, and check out the exclusive briefing that is linked below, but it is only for Next News viewers. Now back to the fight over whether Americans abused by government power will ever see justice. See, here's the twist that the media doesn't want you focusing on. The Trump administration and Attorney General Todd Blanche, they're not describing this as a reward program for political allies. Blanche said that the fund is open so broadly that even Hunter Biden could apply if he believed that he'd been weaponized against. Think about that. The point is not favoritism. The point is ending a culture where federal power gets turned into a political weapon, and the instant that principle was put on paper with real money behind it, the judicial counterattack began. And that's where the story gets absolutely explosive. Lindell TV reporting the federal judge temporarily blocking Trump's $1.8 billion Anti-Weaponization Fund. A federal judge has temporarily halted the administration's new Anti-Weaponization Fund, blocking any payouts or movement of money while legal challenges move forward. It was created to compensate Americans who claim they were targeted by government weaponization and lawfare, including individuals whose lives, finances, business, and reputations were destroyed by politically motivated investigations and prosecutions. The Justice Department says it's extremely confident the fund is legal and argues it follows precedent used by previous administrations. The administration has vowed to continue fighting for restitution for victims of government abuse. Critics are attempting to shut the fund down entirely, calling it an unauthorized political compensation program. Next major court hearing is set for June 12th. So that's the headline. A judge freezing Trump's anti-weaponization fund before even a dollar can move. Next, the case for the fund itself and why the DOJ says victims of the Biden-Garland lawfare, Republican or Democrat, must be able to apply. Now, we presented this to you guys yesterday so that you could see exactly who can apply for this program. If you're following us on X, you've seen this already. If you saw our report on this yesterday, then you know exactly what we're talking about. But the fund, it was announced offering Americans targeted by the Biden administration a chance to receive formal apology and proper compensation. Trump is restoring justice and holding a weaponized bureaucracy accountable. It's open to Christians, pro-life activists, veterans, conservative influencers, and senior citizens. Republicans or Democrats can apply for it. And that's your infographic on the topic. Of course, if you want to read it in full, you can go check it out on our X channel. So the administration says it's not a partisan payback. It's restitution for Americans targeted by the regime. And now the backlash is kicking in. Eric Daugherty calling out the activist judge who moved fast to shut it down. He says a federal activist judge struck down Trump's anti-weaponization fund for now. The judge ordered the DOJ not take any action or even set up or operate the fund. Unbelievable. The judicial coup must end, he writes. Let's take a look.
Making a ruling on the President Trump's anti-weaponization fund that was just announced last week. So this is a pretty quick decision. We will bring you those details as soon as we have them. And a major update in the...
And so that's how quickly the bench moved to block even setting it up. Now here's Treasury Secretary Bessent from the press briefing this week talking about the weaponization fund itself.
President Trump is a great American who has endured more than 10 years of nonstop harassment and weaponization from the federal and state government actors. A bad actor at the IRS leaked more than 400,000 tax returns, including the Trump family, all the employees, and that's how we got here now. No American should be targeted for political reasons, and every citizen deserves fair treatment and full protection of the law. The Department of Justice represented Treasury and the IRS in this matter, and I'm going to have to refer any questions to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. So
that was from the press briefing yesterday. He made the core point. It started with years of harassment, massive tax return leak. Now back to the ruling itself, as Fox details how the judge ordered the DOJ to stop cold while the case plays out. Here's more.
Go through Newark or JFK or all of the airports around us might like that idea. I think it's not going to go over too well with most of the residents in those states.
Indeed. Let me get you this breaking news now. A federal judge in Virginia temporarily blocking the president's nearly $1.8 billion fund for victims of government weaponization, and that's how he described it. U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema, I hope I'm saying this correctly, she handed down the order, and it stops the administration from doing anything with the fund while the judge hears additional arguments. So it's not a denial of it. It's just saying, let's just take a pause here. The Justice Department had announced the fund last week as part of an agreement to settle the president's lawsuit against the IRS. So that breaking news this morning, just a pause until the other judge rules on it altogether.
So it may be a pause, but it's clear the activist judges are out of control. So Fox admitting this is a pause, not the final word, but the fund is frozen. President Trump explains what the settlement means for American families whose legal bills and lives were wrecked by a weaponized government. This is what he said on the tarmac just last week.
What happened is I was suing IRS for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons is they released my tax returns, which you're not allowed to do. Now, they showed I pay a lot of tax. I may even release my current returns because they show I pay a lot of money. But they're not supposed to do that. They were in lockboxes as president. And they released them. And a certain firm released them, which was, I guess, a private firm. But it released them to a lot of the fake news. And the fake news went, and you're just not allowed to do that. And many other things happened. So I released them from the lawsuit, and I guess they made a settlement of some kind. I wasn't involved in the settlement. I could have been involved, but I didn't choose to be. So they made a settlement. Also, the anti-weaponization of people. I mean, people were destroyed. They went to jail. Their families were ruined. They committed suicide. You know, all the Biden administration and the Obama administration, both of them. I mean, the Obama administration started it. The Biden administration was horrible in terms of what they've done to people is incredible. And we're reimbursing those people for their legal fees and for their costs and for anybody involved. But they destroyed people. People committing, I read the other day, a person committed suicide over it. They went, you know, it was the most violent thing I've ever seen in politics, what they did. And yet if I say, oh, let's look at this one or that one, they say weaponization. What they did in terms of weaponization will never be allowed to happen in this country again. So we think that those people, we think that anybody involved in that process should partake. And you're talking about peanuts compared to the value. It destroyed the lives of many, many people.
So President Trump's remarks from the tarmac laying out the human costs, bankrupt families, legal fees, lives destroyed by the swamp's lawfare machine. Todd Blanche torches the Democrat talking point by saying the fund is open so broadly, even Hunter Biden could apply. Listen to this from a committee meeting.
President is one, not true. But two, it's very telling that that's the reaction from Democrats, because it proves the point that President Trump has been saying for a very long time, which happens to be true, which was for the first time in our nation's history, you had an administration seek to destroy the previous administration, not just President Trump, anybody that came in contact with him. I've said it before, but you're talking about his gardeners being put in the grand jury, his Secret Service detail being put multiple times in the grand jury. That's what the last administration did to try to destroy President Trump. And he has said publicly, and I very much agree with him, that he doesn't want this to ever happen again to anybody. And so how do you go about making sure it doesn't happen again to anybody? Well, you change the culture, which is what we're doing. You also set up a mechanism where people that did have it weaponized, have this Department of Justice and this federal government weaponized against them, can apply. Does it mean they're going to get money? No, it doesn't mean they're going to get money. It just invites them to apply.
And they make a case of some kind to meet some standard, right?
Yes, and there's a flaw in the legal system because this legal system was not set up to compensate for what the Democrats and what Biden and what Garland did for 4 years. It doesn't know how to cope with the fact that hundreds and hundreds of administration officials had their phones taken from them. Members of the Senate had their had their phone records subpoenaed and weren't told about it. The system isn't set up for that.
In answers to questions previously put before you this morning, did you took, I assume, because what the settlement agreement says, you eliminated certain individuals from being qualified to receive benefits from this fund. What's the list of those individuals?
Well, the plaintiffs in the underlying lawsuit have agreed to accept an apology. So that's President Trump and his sons, I believe. And otherwise, there is no limitation. So whether you're Hunter Biden or whether you're another individual who believed they were a victim of weaponization, they can all apply to this fund. And again, it doesn't mean the commissioners will agree. It doesn't mean that they're getting $10 million or whatever was just read a few minutes ago. It just means that you can apply.
And the decision by the commission is by a majority?
Yes.
3 of 5?
Correct.
And
So a commission is being set up, no limitation on who can apply. His point is very simple. If you were targeted, you can make your case. It's not just for Trump's allies. Next, another report zeroes in on the judge behind the block, including the Clinton tie in the June 12th hearing that's now looming. A federal judge nominated by Bill Clinton just temporarily blocked Trump's anti-weaponization fund.
Federal judge has temporarily blocked President Trump's administration from paying any claims through a new $1.776 billion settlement fund for the Republican president's allies who believe they were victims of a weaponized government. A U.S. district judge in Alexandria, Virginia, also barred the government from moving forward with the fund's creation while litigation is pending to challenge it. Now, the judge, who was nominated to the bench by President Bill Clinton, scheduled a June 12th hearing for arguments on whether to extend the order blocking payouts from an anti-weaponization fund. The government created the fund to resolve Trump's lawsuit against the Internal Revenue Service over the leak of his tax returns. Now, the fund has created some backlash since it was announced last week, with even Republicans pressing acting Attorney General Todd Blanche over the eligibility considerations and the possibility that even violent rioters at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th would be free to seek compensation. The Justice Department hasn't formed the 5-member commission that will decide on payout criteria, so there has been no money paid out yet or claims accepted. Plaintiffs' attorneys from the legal advocacy group Democracy Forward are seeking a court order halting the fund's implementation and preventing the Trump administration from dispersing any payouts from it. The federal suit claims there is no legal basis or accountability behind the fund.
Of course, the left is screaming mad that there would be any accountability, but what does it really mean? It means the Anti-Weaponization Fund has become the financial embodiment of the lawfare debate in America. President Trump said that people were destroyed, families were ruined, legal fees piled up, and lives were shattered. Treasury Secretary Bessent pointed to the IRS leak of more than 400,000 tax returns, including the Trump family and employees. The administration says the fund follows precedent and is legal, but now a Clinton-nominated federal judge has paused not only payouts, but even the setup and operation of the fund while litigation continues ahead of the June 12th hearing. So this is no longer just executive accountability for past abuse. This is now a direct test of who governs. The elected Trump administration or judges determined to stop restitution before it even starts. You see, the takeaway tonight is very simple. The judge is not the whole story. The injunction is not the whole story. The real story is that the second the Trump administration built a mechanism to compensate victims of federal abuse, every major pressure point in Washington lit up. Why? Because compensation means acknowledgement. Acknowledgement means the weaponization was real. And if the weaponization was real, then the American people were lied to for years by the same machine that called all of this a conspiracy. President Trump is trying to restore justice, formal accountability, and real restitution for citizens crushed by the previous administration's abuse of power. And that is why this fight is only beginning. If you believe the victims of government lawfare deserve compensation, then share this report. Subscribe if you have not, and let me ask you a simple yes or no question. Should Americans targeted by a weaponized government be paid back for what was done to them? I want to hear from you. But I also want you to text the words raw feed to that secret number on the screen. That's 844-840-4963. That's how you and I can connect. I can send you direct messages when the algorithm fails you and fails me. And since we're in the 250th year of this great republic, let's celebrate. And you can do so by checking out some of the America 250 gear we've set up just for you below this video. So the anti-weaponization story, it's out the gate, and then that Clinton judge shuts it down. Oh, yes, that's Washington for you. They are really nervous about this, and rightfully so, because what happens next? It becomes an admission. Imagine how many people are going to go ahead and fill out that application. You can guarantee I will. So the reflecting pool is next on our list of news for the evening. The beautification of our great nation's capital. We're just ahead of all the events that are taking place. Of course, we also know that the big UFC fight is taking place on the South Lawn at the White House. That's going to be a beautiful and amazing event. I just got the press details for that. A little disappointed, but not shocked. I know exactly what I predicted exactly what was going to happen, and what will be happening with respect to the press. They're actually closing the briefing room for that event, and they're not going to be allowing credentialed White House press, people such as myself, to cover it from the grounds directly. So I would not even be able to go into the White House grounds to cover the UFC event. I would have to apply through the UFC website, and then they'll be sending all of those that apply for press to the Ellipse, which is across the street from the White House. So you're going to have to watch it on a Jumbotron they'll probably set up out there, or a pair of binoculars. But believe me, I will have some people on the inside. Can't reveal anything more than that. But I can certainly tell you that those individuals who are on the inside are only members of the White House official pool. And speaking of pools, we do have to talk about the reflecting pool. So Brian, let's get into it now. Talk about what is going on, because why are liberals just freaking out? Liberals are having an absolute meltdown over a pool. Not inflation, not crime, not the border, a pool. President Trump posted a preview of the restored Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, and suddenly the internet erupted because the water basin showed a deep American flag blue tone during the restoration. You can see some of the spraying going on. See, that tells you everything. See, it was never really about waterproof coating or construction materials. It was about something much bigger. Whether America should look proud, clean, strong, and worthy of celebration again. See, the Trump administration says that beauty matters. The left hears that and goes completely unhinged. So what are they really so angry about? But let me tell you the stakes. See, the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, it did need repairs. I saw it with my own eyes last time I was in D.C., and it looked like a filthy, polluted swamp. It needed repairs, waterproofing, cleaning, restoration, and that's a basic fact. Workers were applying industrial coating, upgrading materials, and restoring one of the most iconic public spaces in the entire world ahead of our nation's 250th anniversary. But the moment that rich blue image hit social media, the entire argument changed. Supporters saw a capital city finally being treated with respect. Critics saw Trump branding symbolism in a project they were desperate to sneer at. Why? because this is now a fight over national psychology. President Trump's pushing a very simple America First message. Our capital should not look dirty, neglected, or embarrassing. It should look magnificent. It should inspire people. It should reflect confidence. And you see, that terrifies a political class that spent years normalizing decay, grime, disorder, and managed decline. See, this is not a water story. It's a value story. Build or rot. Restore or surrender. Celebrate America or apologize for it. And while we're talking about restoring American strength, there is another breaking story tied directly to national security. This breaking news on America's critical mineral supply chain, the SAGA metal story, just got a whole lot stronger less than 48 hours ago. SAGA released new information suggesting that its radar project may be sitting on one of the largest titanium and vanadium systems on the entire globe. SAGA Metals is trading as SAGMF in the U.S. and SAGA in Canada, but to understand the scale, you must compare radar to China's Panxinhua deposit. That's a state-linked system that's valued in the multi-billion-dollar range. It's also responsible for over 40% of global vanadium. And SAGA just found the jackpot. See, that's why this matters right now. If America is serious about industrial independence, defense readiness, and breaking foreign mineral dependence, stories like this matter. So check the exclusive briefing. It is linked below, but it's only for Next News viewers. Also, check out the in-depth interview with the CEO I did on this topic just a few weekends ago. Now back to the battle over whether America's capital should look like a world power or a neglected theme park. See, here's the part that the corporate media does not want to admit. This outrage exploded before many people even understood what they were looking at. One post from the White House put it very bluntly, it's not paint. The viral image was tied to a maintenance and waterproofing process. But the left instantly treated it like a scandal because Trump touched it. And once President Trump explained that workers hauled out truckloads of garbage, algae, and filth, the whole thing got even worse for his critics. That is where this story turns from mockery into total exposure. And here's the post. It's not paint, morons. That's rapid response. You can see the video. That's not paint. They're not spraying paint. But Getty Images felt it was necessary. Workers used pressurized hoses to spray blue paint on the bottom of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool in the National Mall on Washington, D.C. Getty Images. So, see, even the mainstream media didn't bother to check. No, it was maintenance, and the left ran with the fake story anyway. Now here's what Trump shared, what that restored reflecting pool could look like in bold American flag blue. President Trump sharing this on Truth Social, the Lincoln Memorial and reflecting pool glowing in deep American flag blue. Trump's having the reflecting pool thoroughly cleaned, repaired, and restored so it will once again be a true thing of beauty ahead of America's 250th anniversary. So this is what President Trump posted. It is going to look President Trump posted that on Truth Social. It is going to look glorious like it always was intended to look. Absolutely beautiful. And it did not look like that when I was there. No, it did not. It looked like a filthy green swamp. So that AI mock-up lit a fuse online. Next, Trump answers the backlash and the loads on the media for whining about cleaning the filth out of our nation's capital. Here's President Trump, because liberals are losing their mind after he posted how beautiful the new USA flag blue Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool will look. They hate nice things, don't they?
War in Iran. Why focus on all these projects right now?
You know why? Because I want to keep our country beautiful and safe. Beautiful also. This place was a disgusting place. It was Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and we had a terrible disgust. I don't know, you probably don't see dirt, but I do. And you walk down this pond, if you would have walked down, they'll tell you better than anybody. They had to take 11 or 12 truckloads of garbage out of that lake, out of that water, and it sat there for years like that. And that's not what our country is about. Our country is about beauty, cleanliness, safety, great people, not a filthy capital. And such a stupid question that you ask. We're fixing up the reflecting pond to the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, and you say, why are you fixing it up? Because you can understand dirt maybe better than I can, but I don't allow it. This is one of the worst reporters. She's with ABC Fake News, and she's a horror show. She's saying, why would you bother fixing this up? Why would I bother taking 11 or 12 truckloads of filth out of the water in front of the Lincoln Monument? That's what made our country great. Beauty made our country. People made our country great. A question like that is a disgrace to our country.
Unbelievable. But what do you expect from the mainstream press? His point was quite simple. Beauty, cleanliness, and pride beat garbage and algae every time. This next post says that's exactly why liberals are so miserable watching normal Americans enjoy a country that's being cleaned up. Is it possible that libs like tent cities, needles, and poop all over blue cities, violent criminals reduced by activist judges, kids that can't read or write, high taxes, homeless dirtbags? Yes, as long as the Democrats in charge, but inside they envy your way of life. Watching liberals watching you have a happy life. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the meme lands because the pattern is obvious. The left tolerates decay as long as their side's in charge. Meanwhile, here's a real-world fix. Columbus Circle finally flowing again after sitting dead for 2 decades. Trump just restored Columbus Circle in D.C. It hasn't flowed in 2 decades. Can you believe that? 2 decades. How many presidential administrations let Columbus Circle languish like this? President Trump said enough. It's not just one fountain, no. Getting brought back to life, Trump shows off a sample of the reflecting pool finish and asks the obvious question, how can anyone be mad about this? So if you recall, this is what President Trump wore in his motorcade. Really cleaned up the reflecting pool just a few weeks ago.
Usually the second.
President Trump literally driving on the reflecting pool. Absolutely amazing. Trump is fixing D.C.'s disgusting reflecting pool, draining the swamp, painting it as sharp as American flag blue, and the fake outrage from the left is hilarious. Remember when Obama dropped $34 million? It took 2 years to renovate it, only for it to turn nasty algae sludge pit weeks later. CNN was there showing tourists gagging at the smell and the green mess. Where was the hysteria then? Crickets. But Trump actually makes it look presidential, and they lose their minds. This is from 2012. Look at this.
There's plenty to take pictures of in downtown Washington, D.C. The Lincoln Memorial, the World War II Memorial, and then there's this. Folks snapping photos of the reflecting pool.
It's really sludgy up this end.
And what's in it?
It's disgusting. It's not right.
Algae.
It's like, smells like wet dog down here, you know. When my dog came home from a stream, he always smelled like this, so it's gross.
The Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool reopened at the end of August to great fanfare after a $34 million renovation that lasted nearly 2 years. But less than a month later, the famous pool of water is full of algae. Algae are simple organisms that thrive in areas where there is heat and sunlight. You have plenty of that here.
The water may not look great, but it doesn't pose a health or safety hazard. It's really just the yuck factor.
If it's sunny, if it's really warm, it will rise to the top. So on some days, depending on the weather, you will see algae at the top, and they looks like small islands of algae.
But why has algae suddenly become a problem? The reflecting pool was renovated to fix cracks and leaks, but it also included installing a system to draw water from the nearby tidal basin into the pool instead of using city drinking water. Algae naturally grows in the tidal basin. Plus, the renovated pool holds less water. That shallow depth is a perfect condition for algae to grow.
Way to go, Obama.
A bit of an embarrassment for the Park Service.
It's really a shame that they hadn't planned out this a little bit better so you wouldn't have algae growing after all this time and money.
The reflecting pool is not reflecting.
It's nasty.
Much of anything. Lisa Sylvester, CNN.
It took Obama 2 years. 2 years! And that's what he got. A nasty algae-filled swamp. That's a comparison Democrats and their media friends never want to make. Now watch the administration put another win on the board with Columbus Fountain restored and Interior touting the turnaround. Take a look at this.
And take a look at this. Water is now flowing at the Columbus Circle Fountain near Washington, D.C.'s Union Station. Wow. The Department of the Interior celebrated the improvements this morning. That project was part of President Trump's Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful campaign. Before today, the Columbus Fountain hadn't been working since 2007. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum spoke about the significance of these renovations.
As we cut this ribbon, and this morning when this fountain roared back to life, we've restored a gateway to our capital, which stands as a reminder that the American story is still being written, and with your help, the best chapters are still ahead.
The project included upgrading aging infrastructure, updating the landscape, and improving pedestrian access. The administration says the efforts were completed on time and on budget. And during today's press conference, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced a new $465 million grant.
That's what happens when you have a president who understands construction. He gets things done on time and on budget. So with left Mock's restoration, results are already visible on the ground. Here's a look from the sky at the reflecting pool as the cleanup build moves forward. Take a look at that. You can see the reflecting pool. You can see that first patch of beautiful blue being laid down. Cannot wait to return to Washington, D.C. to see this with my own eyes and celebrate America 250 as Trump intends. So the aerial view shows just how central the project is to the Capitol. Now Secretary Doug Burgum lays out the bigger mission. Not just one pool, but dozens of fountains, monuments, and statues are all being restored after the Biden mess.
Well, and again, that idea came from President Trump, American flag blue. He was trying to optimize for, it is called the reflecting pool for a reason. 8 acres, one of the largest pools like it in the world, and it's going to be spectacular when it's done. But under President Trump, again, sign an executive order, make D.C. safe and beautiful. If we're the greatest country in the world, let's have the safest and most beautiful capital in the world. The projects are going on, like the one that you discussed at Columbus Circle, complete 180-degree change from what we inherited in the Biden administration. But that's happened. That's one of 22 fountains that are being restored, over 48 monuments and statues being restored, regilded. All the parks, triangle and circle parks around the city belong to the National Park Service. The team there has done an incredible job. That's part of the Department of Interior. But again, kudos to everything that everybody's doing. This city is gonna look better than it ever has as we head into the celebration of the USA and the Freedom 250.
Amazing. So it was never only about one blue reflecting pool. It's a full-scale push to make Washington look like America's capital again. U.S. Department of Interior, the fountains are flowing. The weather is perfect. If you're in Washington, D.C., get out and enjoy it. Historic fountains and public spaces across the nation's capital have been brought back to life as part of the president's efforts to make the city safe and beautiful. Look at this. How beautiful. Just another scene of beauty restored by President Trump. Because he cares about this country, he cares about our nation, he cares about the optics. Think about all the foreigners who visit our nation's capital and come to this very spot and they just see dried up concrete and weeds. And now they're going to come here and they're going to see a nation with an administration that respects the stature of this country. So what does it all really mean? It means President Trump understands symbolism better than the people who are mocking him. A restored reflecting pool, a working fountain at Columbus Circle for the first time since 2007, 22 fountains being restored, more than 48 monuments and statues being repaired after what Secretary Burgum called a complete 180-degree change from what was inherited from the former administration under Joe Biden. This is a governing philosophy. Make the Capitol safe, make it beautiful, make public spaces worthy of the American people. The left's rage gives that away. You see, they're not furious about blue coating. They're furious because Trump is reviving visible national pride. Every restored monument reminds voters just how much decline had been tolerated for far too long. I mean, remember, what did the left like to do? Destroy our monuments, deface our monuments, and tear our statues down. President Trump is doing a complete 180 on all of that. And that's why this story matters so much. Under President Trump, Washington is being cleaned up, repaired, and restored, and made to look like the capital of the greatest nation on earth. The Columbus Fountain's flowing again. The reflecting pool is being rebuilt for beauty and durability. The National Mall is being prepared for America's 250th birthday with the kind of pride that this country deserves. Meanwhile, the same people who shrugged at algae sludge, broken fountains, and public disorder and years of neglect are suddenly outraged because Trump wants excellence. That contrast is devastating for them. See, Americans can see it. One side wants restoration, pride, and visible greatness. The other side, reflexivity, attacks anything that makes America look strong, polished, and patriotic. So let me ask you the yes or no question that cuts right to the core. Should America's capital be clean, beautiful, and inspiring again? Drop your answer below. Share this report with someone who still thinks this is just about a pool. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Next News Network, turn on your alerts, but most importantly, text those 2 words you see on your screen, raw feed. Text those 2 words to 844-840-4963. That's so you and I can stay connected when the algorithm decides otherwise. And since we're talking about America 250, I want to celebrate with you. Find some Next News merch in the merch shelf below this video, and let's celebrate together. Okay, Brian, so how do you want to do this distribution on that White House story? Oh, you did? Okay, perfect. No, you're fine. That was fine. Let me get on that. Okay, that next one is ready to go. What time is it? Okay. Yeah, I've already gone through them. Okay, so let me go ahead and adjust that time. Okay, today is the 29th. It is Friday. What do you guys got planned for the weekend? Anything fun? I'm sure you got some fun stuff planned for the weekend. I hope you do. I've got some non-political stuff going on this weekend. Yep. I'm in the game all week, and sometimes I just need to take a mental break and do something completely different. Yes, as you know, I do own a DeLorean time machine, so I'll be taking that out this weekend and having some fun with it, because that's what I do. Speaking of time, Iran is running out of time, so we need to talk about exactly what is going on right now, what happened in the Situation Room at the White House today. Tonight, the story out of the White House is not that America is preparing for war. It's that President Donald Trump may already have forced Iran to the table on America's terms. Now let that sink in. Just days ago, the language was all pressure, all power, all options on the table, and now the Trump administration is talking about concessions, compliance, uranium removal, reopening the strait, and a final decision from the Situation Room. That's not the sound of a weak deal. That's the sound of an adversary backing down after getting hit with overwhelming American leverage. And the biggest tell of all, the White House is starting to sound like it believes victory is already in hand. You see, this matters for one reason above all. If President Trump closes this the way his team is signaling, America doesn't just avoid a wider regional conflict, America wins it before it starts. Vice President JD Vance says there have been significant progress that Iran is so far negotiating in good faith. Stephen Miller went even further, saying Iran has made significant material and dramatic concessions that would have been impossible only a short time ago. That's the entire ballgame. Not compromise, not concessions, not American retreat. Iranian retreat. And why now? Because President Trump applied pressure that the weak-kneed foreign policy class never had the courage to use. Military dominance, economic strangulation, absolute clarity, no nuclear weapon, and no games in the Strait of Hormuz, and no endless diplomatic theater while Tehran stalls and cheats. The former Obama-Biden approach enriched bad actors and empowered chaos. The Trump administration is doing the opposite. Strength first, results seconds. And a deal only if America gets the trophy items that actually matter. And while we're talking about national security victories, there's another breaking story that America needs to watch very, very closely. This breaking news on America's critical mineral supply chain, the SAGA metal story we've been covering, it just got a whole lot stronger. Less than 48 hours ago, SAGA Metals released new information suggesting its radar project may be sitting on one of the largest titanium and vanadium systems on the planet. And that matters because the U.S. cannot afford to stay dependent on hostile or unreliable foreign supply chains for strategic materials. Now take note of this because SAGA trades as SAGMF in the United States and SAGA in Canada. Now to understand the scale, you need to compare the radar project to China's Panzinhua deposit. That's the Chinese state-linked system. It's valued in the multi-billion-dollar range. It's also responsible for over 40% of global vanadium output. And that's why SAGA has just got something even bigger to compete. So check out the in-depth interview with the CEO I did on this topic just a few weekends ago, and check the exclusive briefing that is linked below, but it's only for Next News viewers. You'll find it in the description. Now back to the geopolitical showdown, because what Trump is doing with Iran follows the exact America first logic. Secure the essentials, cut the dependency, and dictate terms from strength. Because here's the part that the media still does not want to admit. The administration is no longer talking like it's guessing. It's talking like it's closing. President Trump has now laid out final terms in public. No nuclear weapon, no tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, removal of mines, destruction of buried enriched material, and no money exchange until further notice. That is a surrender checklist, not a negotiation wish list. And when the president heads to the Situation Room after posting terms like that, he's sending one message to Tehran and to the world that America is not asking. America is deciding. So let's check in with what the vice president had to say. The U.S. has made significant progress. Here he is on the tarmac in front of Air Force Two.
On Iran, can you give us an update on where these negotiations are and when do you expect the president to sign this MOU?
Well, I think it's hard to say exactly when or if the president's going to sign the MOU. We're going back and forth on a couple of language points. I do think that we've made a lot of progress here. It's very clear that I think the Iranians, they want a deal, and they want to open the Straits of Hormuz. We want them to open the Straits of Hormuz. There are a couple of issues on the nuclear stuff, the highly enriched stockpile, and also the question of enrichment. So, we're going back and forth with them. We do think they're negotiating, at least so far, in good faith, and we're making some progress. Hopefully we'll continue to make progress. The president will be in a position where he can endorse the agreement, but obviously that's still TBD.
That is still to be determined. Vice President Vance laying out significant progress. At least they're talking in good faith, but nobody in his White House is taking promises at face value. Now Stephen Miller lays out why Iran is suddenly making dramatic concessions after Trump put the regime on its knees. Here he is talking with Jesse Waters.
Well, as you said, President Trump is the one who's going to make that decision, and President Trump alone. He's directly, personally involved in the negotiations, making sure that the results are up to his standards. As you've outlined, Iran has made significant material and dramatic concessions to the United States that would have been impossible only a short time ago because of the military battlefield defeat that they have suffered and the embargo continuing to choke the life out of their economy. But let's understand something else. It's very important to baseline this all on where we are today versus where we started. When Obama signed the Iran nuclear deal, the so-called JCPOA, Iran was on a guaranteed path to a nuclear weapon, to being the dominant power in the region, to being the richest and most militarily threatening nation in the entire Middle East, with the ability to launch ballistic and ultimately nuclear weapons to Europe and eventually the United States. Now, because of President Trump, their economy has been dismantled. Their nuclear program under Operation Midnight Hammer has been obliterated. Their entire defense industrial base has been eradicated. Their navy's at the bottom of the sea. Their air force is at the bottom of the sea. Their entire leadership class has been decapitated. It is the most complete, thorough, total military thrashing in the history of armed conflict. 4 weeks and a country decimated to that degree, to that extent, and now here we are at the end of that with Iran putting on the table a complete reopening of the Strait, as has been discussed, and many other concessions that are going to be unveiled in the time to come. But again, there's no deal until there's a deal. Nothing's final until it's final. And President Trump's been clear that he reserves the option now or at any time in the future to do whatever is necessary to defend and protect America's national security. All right.
I love Stephen Miller. I love that guy. I want to have beers with him someday. Here's kind of weird, though. Miller makes the point plain. Iran didn't come to the table out of goodwill. It came crawling after getting hammered. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth is showing the wider message to America's allies: peace through strength is back. Currently holding bilateral meetings with Thailand because America is respected again.
As we know, on this side, Thailand is one of the United States' oldest allies in this region and around the world. And for decades, our military alliance has been an anchor for peace through strength in the Pacific. And as fellow infantrymen, I know you have an extensive military background. We both understand that the strength of any alliance is forged in the field and through training and readiness of our forces. So I'm pleased that we recently...
Hegseth projecting strength abroad, the pressure campaign in Iran getting more concrete by the hour. Peter Doocy reports Trump says U.S. personnel could go into Iran and collect the leftover uranium themselves.
President Trump just got on Air Force One for a quick trip to Arizona for an event that we'll see later on today. He didn't take any questions, but he just told CBS News. He basically explained why it is that he is so confident a deal is about to be closed with the Iranians. He says that they have agreed to let United States, not troops, just somebody from the United States, go in to Iran with some Iranian officials to collect leftover uranium, what he calls the nuclear dust, and then bring it back somewhere to the United States. That has been the key to all of this. The president earlier today disputed a report in Axios that the U.S. might unfreeze $20 billion in Iranian money in exchange for getting them to fork over all this uranium. He says not a dollar will be exchanged in any way. So we will definitely hear more about this once he gets to Arizona. But there's a lot happening, and it is possible that he doesn't want to get ahead of his team who are talking directly to Tehran.
Peter Doocy with the update there, detailing the confidence in the uranium issue. President putting the terms in black and white. His own post spelling out the blockade, the Strait of Hormuz, and the final decision from the Situation Room. Iran must agree they will never have a nuclear weapon or a bomb. The Hormuz Strait must be immediately open. No tolls, no unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. All water mines, bombs, if any, will be terminated, and we have removed through detonation numerous such mines with our great underwater mine sweepers. Iran will complete the immediate removal of and or detonate any mines that are left, which will not be many. Ships caught in the strait due to our amazing and unprecedented naval blockade, which will now be lifted, may start the process of heading home. Say hello to your wives, husbands, parents, and families from me, your favorite president. So President Trump laying it out there. And we have this from Trump Daily Post. President Trump in the Situation Room as major Iran deal nears completion. Strait of Hormuz set to reopen. No nuclear weapons allowed, and buried nuclear material will be retrieved. Big progress, will be historic.
Right about it with Iran. Iran is very much intent. They want very much to make a deal. So far, they haven't gotten there. We're not satisfied with it, but we will be. We will be either that or we'll have to just finish the job. But their Navy is gone, as I've said 1,000 times. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Everything's gone, and they're negotiating on fumes. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish it. Maybe we don't. Right now, I mean, you can speak to Steve Witkoff and Jared. They're doing a good job. But right now, I think it looks like they want to just make a deal. They want to. They have. I don't think they have a choice. They're just going back to the internet because they're getting clobbered. Their economy is in free fall. They have 250% inflation. Their money has no value. Their whole economic system is broken down. They thought they were going to outweight me. You know, we'll outweight him. He's got the midterms. I don't care about the midterms. Look what happened last night. That was the prelude to the midterms. People understand it. They know that. Very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I'm doing that for the world. I'm not doing it just for us. And we've had great support from other nations, by the way. We don't need it.
So the Iran negotiating on fumes. The White House is making clear the clock is ticking. Fox breaks down the proposed 60-day framework, including Hormuz sanctions and what still has to happen. This from Trump Daily Post. Trump is staying at the White House all weekend as a 60-day Iran peace deal takes shape. Key demands include full reopening of the strait, no nuclear weapons, and uranium disposal.
By Axios, the memo of understanding states shipping will be restored in the Strait of Hormuz without restrictions, and this includes Iran removing mines from the waterway within 30 days. The U.S. would also lift its blockade and some sanctions to allow Iran to sell oil. Iran would also commit to not pursuing a nuclear weapon. It's still unclear, though, what would happen to Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, and that's one of the issues that will continue to be hashed out within this 60-day window. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is not ruling out military action if a deal is not reached.
It is a multifaceted agreement, and nothing is going to be on the table until we see the Strait of Hormuz open and the Iranians agree that they have to turn over the highly enriched uranium and that they can't have a nuclear program. But if President Trump doesn't think he can get a peace deal, then kinetic is back.
So this comes as the U.S. continues to squeeze Iran's economy. The Treasury Department has issued new sanctions targeting Iran's military oil trade. And according to Iran state media, Iran says if a draft deal is completed, it would be announced by Pakistani mediators. So one good upside, though, guys, oil prices did drop on the news that a possible ceasefire extension is at hand. And, you know, that will be a relief for a lot of Americans who are hoping that gas prices will come down. Now we'll wait to see if this actually does come into fruition. Holly, Ainsley, and Brian.
Thank you, Maddie.
$94 a barrel. Thank you, Maddie.
Continuing, the report shows there is still one major sticking point, the nuclear material itself. Now we go to the latest from the White House. Trump in the Situation Room with the final terms, front and center.
Gathered with his staff and support to figure out the next steps here. He calls it time for a final determination on whether or not we will see an extension, a 60-day extension to the ceasefire and the war with Iran. And in that time, here's what he wants to see. This is what he has put out on his Truth Social. Iran must agree that they will never have a nuclear weapon or bomb. The Hormuz Strait must be immediately opened. No tolls for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. All water mines, bombs, if any, will be terminated. And then he goes on to say, ships caught in the strait due to our amazing and unprecedented naval blockade, which will now be lifted, may start the process of heading home. We are awaiting word from the president right now about what happens next. And we'll continue to put more of his posts there on the screen. I want to really stick on one point with my next guest. The president says the enriched material. So this is really the first time that we know of that Iran has potentially been looking at something that they would consider that has their nukes in it. So the enriched material, sometimes referred to as nuclear dust specifically, which is buried deep underground with virtually collapsed mountains caused by our powerful B-2 bomber attack 11 months ago, still sitting on top of it. That nuclear dust will be unearthed by the United States.
So Trump is just dropped. Oil is flowing to Japan. Recently served hundreds of thousands of gallons to the region. Iran is causing chaos in the strait with a severe miscalculation. Japan is buying more U.S. oil.
こちらアメリカから来たタンカーです。中東から来る大型タンカーに比べると少し小さく細めの船となっています。
このタンカーはアメリカ産の原油およそ91万バレルを積んでいます。先月22日にテキサス州を出発しました。中東情勢が悪化した。
President Trump posting that to Truth Social. So what does it all really mean? It means the Trump administration appears to believe the hardest part is over. The pressure campaign worked. Iran's navy's crippled, economy in free fall, leverage in Hormuz is collapsing, and its leaders are discussing the one thing they never wanted to discuss on America's terms. What happens to the enriched uranium? That's why this moment is so important. The Strait of Hormuz is the visible trophy, because reopening global shipping shows the world that Iran failed to hold energy markets hostage, but the real red line is the nuclear material. If Tehran gives it up, President Trump can tell the American people he did what the foreign policy failures before him could never, ever do. Force Iran backward without handing them pallets of cash or a path to the bomb. This is why tonight feels a little bit different. The White House is not speaking in the language of panic. It's speaking in the language of enforcement, compliance, and final review. President Trump has shown the formula again. Project overwhelming strength, break the enemy's leverage, and then make peace from a position of dominance. That is America First foreign policy in action. That's the MAGA doctrine. While the old establishment spent years empowering Tehran, President Trump's making it clear the only future Iran gets is one without a nuclear weapon and without control over the strait and without extorting the civilized world. That's a win for the United States, a win for global shipping, and a win for energy stability, and a win for peace through strength. If you agree President Trump has Iran cornered and is about to deliver a historic America First victory, share this report right now, subscribe to the Next News Network, and drop your answer below. Yes or no, should Trump demand total uranium surrender before signing anything? I want to hear from you. Let's have a conversation in the comments below. But before we do, text those two words you see on your screen right there, raw feed, text it to 844-840-4963. That's how you will get secret messages right to your phone from the Next News Network, from me, when the algorithm decides otherwise. And since we're celebrating America 250, I want to celebrate it with you, so make sure you hit the merch shelf below this video and pick up something, and let's celebrate together. All right, so the Iran story is one that is just around the corner from conclusion. And we're going to continue our news of the evening here. We got to talk about what's going on in Minnesota with the criminal enterprise led by Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar. That CIA gold bar story is developing. We got some new information on that. And of course, the swatting of the Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett and even Erica Kirk. An interesting story there. Someone now behind bars threatening her. So we're going to talk about all these things. Let's get into the Minnesota story now. What looked like one ugly fraud case in Minnesota is blowing open into something far bigger. A possible nationwide system feeding off taxpayers across multiple government programs at once. The Trump administration is no longer talking like this is random abuse or isolated scams or just a few bad actors. They're talking like investigators may have found an industrial-scale machine built to loot Medicaid, COVID relief, autism services, and more. Now, after explosive new numbers out of North Carolina, HHS is moving in all 50 states. So here's the question. Was Minnesota the scandal, or was Minnesota just the first place they looked? See, this matters because once you connect the dots, the pattern gets ugly fast. The White House is already highlighting a $21 million Medicaid fraud case in Minnesota with Shamso Ahmed Hassan and Hana Mursal Yusuf arrested on health care fraud charges. That alone would be major news, but now the Trump administration is widening the aperture. HHS launching a wide-scale audit of all 50 states' taxpayer-funded autism programs after data from North Carolina showed an eye-popping surge in billing that reportedly jumped 11,000%, while other reporting put the figure even higher. Either way, the signal is the same. Something is wildly out of line. Add in the evidence that Medicaid billing for ABA therapy has surged in state after state, and suddenly this stops looking local. It starts looking like a gold rush for fraudsters who spotted weak oversight, massive public spending, and an open door. President Trump warned, you haven't seen anything yet, and he may be right. And while Washington works to lock down fraud at home, there is another urgent America First fight that is happening right now, our critical mineral supply chain. This breaking news on America's critical mineral supply chain. The SAGA metal story just got a lot stronger. Less than 48 hours ago, SAGA released new information suggesting its radar project may be sitting on one of the largest titanium-vanadium systems on the entire planet. You see, that matters because vanadium is critical for defense, energy, storage, aerospace, and the industrial backbone that China has spent years dominating. SAGA Metals is trading as, take note, SAGMF in the U.S. and SAGA in Canada. Now, to understand the scale, you need to compare the radar project to China's Panzinhua deposit. Now, that is a state-linked system. It's valued in the multi-billion-dollar range. It's also responsible for over 40% of global vanadium supply. And that is why SAGA has got a checkmate on China. But you need to check out the in-depth interview with the CEO on this topic I did just a few weekends ago, and check the exclusive briefing that is linked below, but it's only for Next News viewers. Now back to the bombshell at home, because the fraud story just got even bigger. See, here's the part the media really doesn't want to say out loud. The North Carolina numbers changed the entire story. For months, the critics, they tried to wave off Minnesota as some sort of weird regional scandal. Not anymore. When another state suddenly posts billing explosions in autism programs, and HHS answers with a 50-state audit that tells you the Trump administration believes this may be systemic. And once you add COVID money, Medicaid money, federal reimbursement, and weak controls into the very same picture, the real question becomes brutally simple. How many industries were built around stealing from you? That's the question. HHS now launching a wide-scale audit of all 50 states' taxpayer autism programs due to rampant fraud. North Carolina just dropped 11,000% surge in autism billing. 11,000%. It wasn't just Minnesota. You haven't seen anything yet. That's what President Trump said in the briefing room, or the cabinet room this week. It's being called a gold rush of fraud.
Now we'll audit all 50 American states looking for potentially massive fraud in the billing of autism treatment. This is happening now amid a recent explosion in spending on autism services. North Carolina alone apparently saw an 11,000% increase in the last 4 years. Why was that? Good question for Alexandria Hoff, live in D.C. Alex, hello. Good morning.
Hey, Bill, yeah, it is a good question because according to that data coming out of North Carolina, the use of taxpayer-funded autism services is significantly outpacing the number of children being diagnosed. So something's not right there, and it's not just in the Tar Heel State. A recent analysis by the Cato Institute found that in 5 years, Medicaid billing has surged in every other state that makes their data public for money spent on ABA therapy. It's applied behavior analysis, that's what it's called. For reference, Minnesota's ABA spending increased by about 51,000% since 2018. We all know what happened there. President Trump spoke on that yesterday.
You saw that with millions of dollars just being stolen. Everybody had autism. Everybody had autism. They said, It was incredible, actually. And I've just seen I see what they're doing. You haven't seen anything yet.
It's not necessarily malice everywhere. That hasn't been proven yet. ABA therapy is considered a critical resource for children diagnosed with autism, but given its complicated billing structure, incentive to overbill, an influx of private equity-backed providers into that space, it's really being looked at like a gold rush. Audits so far by HHS's Office of Inspector General has uncovered $198 million in improper payments made in just 4 states, $410 million incorrectly billed. And examining this really depends on each state's ability to organize and analyze its own spending. That's why HHS is now deploying AI tools to double check that oversight and try to root out any possible fraud, Bill.
Okay.
So that is the latest 50-state autism audit. Tells you the fraud machine is bigger than Minnesota. Now the Trump team says the Biden crowd also tried to bury $200 billion in fake PPP loans.
Think about, at the SBA, we found $200 billion in fraudulent PPP loans that the Biden administration tried to hide and forgive and sweep under the rug. We've turned the first $22 billion of that over to Treasury for collections and to DOJ for prosecution. Our Inspector General is already announcing that people are going to jail. There are jail sentences now being served. We've announced that 140,000 people have been barred from ever getting SBA loans again, defrauding the government.
Biden is sweeping it all under the rug. So it's not just one program getting looted, it's a pattern of Washington looking the other way. FBI Director Kash Patel lays out how that crackdown reaches overseas. Scam compounds are modern-day criminal enterprises built to steal from Americans, launder money, and exploit traffic workers. The FBI led the charge to take down Prince Group in Cambodia and Operation Sand Dollar in Dubai, shutting down more than $8 billion in fraud, freeing nearly 2,000 traffic workers, and arresting nearly 300 people. So the fraud fight is global, with traffickers and money launderers in the crosshairs. Back here at home, a Minnesota whistleblower says North Carolina autism billing spike is so insane it can't even pass the smell test.
Well, when there's that much smoke, there's fire somewhere. So what is the problem with turning over the documents?
Yeah, it seems like a very simple solution. I want to get your reaction to a story I mentioned that I'm not going to let go. It's this Minnesota fraudster who cuts no jail plea deal with a key condition tied to alleged mastermind. These were the texts I put up. This guy is a co-defendant in fraud, fled the country, and they just don't give him jail time. I mean, your hard work really led to moments like this. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I'm always on the edge of sanity and insanity here when I see this. We had that other gentleman who was convicted of $7.2 million of fraud. A unanimous conviction by the jury, and Judge Shara West overturned the guilty verdict. That was just recently. And then we had this woman who owned the Future Leaders Early Learning Center, which Nick and I featured in our video. And she, over the last 5 years, has gotten almost $12 million for her child care. She was also part in the Feeding Our Future fraud, where she said she served 426,000 meals at her child care facility, which is not a very big place. And she was fleeing the country. They caught her at the airport. She had a one-way ticket to London, where she owns a very large home. So, look, when I started all this, I said, I'm going to destroy this whole fraud empire. And I realized that it was not only throughout Minnesota, but it had spread throughout the country. And I knew it was in Columbus, Ohio, it was in Lewiston, Maine. It's not in California, it's not in LA, because that's the Russian Armenian mob out there that has the hospice centers that Nick uncovered. But now we see in North Carolina, the story came out today, that they've had a 47,000% increase in autism billings. 47,000% over 4 years? It's impossible. So I agree that AI is the key to the linchpin to stopping this, but it has to be the right AI, because AI can be corrupted. So it has to be set with the right information, because AI looks at what gets put in, and that's what it formulates when it comes up with the answers to questions that we have. We have to take the human element out of this, because we cannot trust the people who are in these positions to do the right thing.
David Hoke, thank you. Appreciate you. And I'm going to check on that.
So the whistleblower is saying the numbers are impossible and the paper trail needs to come clean. Next, Tim Walz gets pressed on the fraud inside Minnesota's Somali community. His answer goes straight to identity politics after 2 women from Minnesota's Somali community were arrested in a $21 million Medicaid fraud scheme.
Do you want to hear more from members and leaders from the Somali community to say, we need to look at ourselves, we need to hold our own neighbors accountable, because look at the damage that this has done to our community. What do you want to hear more from, instead of just saying, don't blame us? Do you want to see more ownership and oversight from within this?
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed.
Like you?
I think for the community to maybe educate their population, because I think what you're seeing here is there's secondary victims in this, that there's providers inside the community that are then victimizing the community themselves by signing them up, because when we're going to some of these people, they're like, I had no idea I was in this program. So I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general. And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population. And again, this is 80 people or so that have been convicted in this, maybe some more in that.
The irony here is that he's white. And this is what the White House posted. Minnesota's fraud schemes are finished. The days of scamming American taxpayers are done. Minnesota residents arrested for $21 million Medicaid fraud scheme. Yeah. And then comes the biggest tell of all. It's no longer being framed as clerical abuse or sloppy bookkeeping. FBI Director Kash Patel says the scam compounds in Cambodia and Dubai, they were shut down in operations that took down more than $8 billion in fraud, freed nearly 2,000 traffic workers, and led to nearly 300 arrests. That's not a paperwork error. That's organized crime. And on top of that, the SBA says investigators found $200 billion in fraudulent PPP loans from the previous administration era, with $22 billion already sent to Treasury for collection and DOJ for prosecution. And 140,000 people barred from future SBA loans. So, yes, this is a real story. Fraud wasn't random. It may have been a sprawling criminal economy feeding on government expansion. And that's why this moment, why it matters so much. The Trump administration is doing what the establishment refused to do for years. Treat fraud like a national emergency, not a public relations problem. Minnesota may have been the first crack in the wall. North Carolina may be proof that the wall is rotten everywhere. And if these audits keep uncovering numbers like this, we may be looking at one of the biggest domestic scandals of Trump's second term, a full-scale exposure of how federal programs were exploited while bureaucrats looked the other way. Even Tim Walz's response tells you where Democrats are headed: deflect, dodge, and refuse accountability. But the country's done with excuses. We want prosecutions, recoveries, and we want answers. Share this report everywhere. Subscribe if you're sick of being lied to. And drop your answer in the comments. Should every governor and agency head in America now face direct scrutiny over fraud on their watch? Yes or no? See those numbers on your screen right there? 844-840-4963. Text the words raw feed to that secret number so you and I can maintain our connection when the algorithm and notifications determine otherwise. And since we're celebrating our 250th year here as a beautiful republic, celebrate with us. Find some America 250 gear just for you in our merch shelf below this video. Yes, I want the perp walks too. I gotta check in here. Cuba, yep. Okay. I just got some information from the White House. So a lid was just called. It's from my source inside. Nothing on the weekend scheduled. Somebody disrupted the peace deal. I'm just finding this out. You're hearing it first. Someone disrupted the peace deal that we were waiting for all day after he said he was going into the Situation Room for a final determination. Someone disrupted the peace deal. I'm not sure. I asked for clarification. Something went sideways in the Situation Room. We still do not have clarification on exactly what went down there. He will be at the White House all weekend, so this could break at any moment. We're also hearing the Cuba regime is coming down very soon. So these are different topics we have been tracking. Something just happened in the Situation Room, and we don't have clarity yet. Hopefully we can get some clarity before this broadcast is over. Let me just go ahead and send my message. About sideways events. Okay. All right, let's go to our next story here. Not sure exactly what happened, but we do know that the Situation Room was activated today. Okay, Brian, I'm ready. We can move on to our next story here. Right now, we're looking at a story so outrageous it sounds like a rejected Hollywood script, except federal investigators say it was real. A former senior CIA official is now sitting in jail after agents reportedly found 303 gold bars, roughly $2 million in cash, dozens of Rolexes inside his Virginia home. Let that sink in. Not a cartel kingpin, not a sanctioned oligarch, a man trusted at the highest levels of America's intelligence system. And if he really pulled this off for years while waving it away as work-related expenses, then the question is no longer what he stole. The question is who inside the system let this happen. And I'll tell you why this matters. You see, it's far beyond any one disgraced bureaucrat. The issue is not just the gold, it's not just the watches, it's not even just the alleged fraud. The real issue is whether one of the most powerful intelligence institutions in the world can police itself at all. According to the reports, David Rush allegedly got his hands on tens of millions in gold and foreign currency. Investigators also say he may have lied about parts of his background just to get hired in the first place. So, where were the background checks? Where were the audits? Where were the supervisors? The American people have been told for years that these agencies are packed with elite professionals protected by layers of oversight and equipped with world-class security systems. Yet now we're being told a senior official may have been sitting on 303 gold bars at home. Under President Trump, Americans are demanding accountability from institutions that got way too comfortable hiding behind secrecy. This story is exactly why that pressure is needed. And speaking of national security, there's another breaking development Americans need to watch very closely. This breaking news on America's critical mineral supply chain. The SAGA metal story we've been tracking just got a lot stronger. Less than 48 hours ago, SAGA released new information suggesting its radar project may be sitting on one of the largest titanium and vanadium systems on the entire planet. Now take a look at your screen. SAGA trades as SAGMF in the US and SAGA in Canada. To understand the scale, you need to compare China's Panxinhua deposit to radar. Now, the Panxinhua deposit is a state-linked system. It's valued in the multi-billion-dollar range, responsible for over 40% of global vanadium supply. And in the America First era, that matters. See, domestic resource strength is national strength. And SAGA looks like they may just have the market cornered. So check the exclusive briefing. It's linked below, but it's only for Next News viewers. And check out the in-depth interview with the CEO I did on this very topic just a few weekends ago. Now let's get back to the scandal that is blowing a hole straight through the intelligence community's credibility, because here is the twist that makes it even worse. Investigators are not just looking at piles of gold and luxury watches. Reports say that Rush may have fabricated key parts of his education, his military background, including claims tied to elite institutions and even pilot service. Think about that. Americans applying for basic security jobs get picked apart over tiny discrepancies, but a man who allegedly rose inside the CIA may have cruised past the gatekeepers. That's where this story stops being just criminal and starts becoming institutional. And once you see the tweets and the reactions pouring in, the outrage only gets bigger. It is official. Former high-level CIA officer David Rush is in jail after committing jaw-dropping fraud, stealing $40 million worth of gold bars. Check this out.
$40 million worth of gold bars in his Virginia home. Correspondent David Spunt has details from Washington. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening to you. Tonight, David Rush is a former CIA senior official. He's behind bars accused of stealing 303 gold bars from the agency, worth more than $40 million. While the case is being made public now, the FBI arrested David Rush on May 19th and searched his Northern Virginia home. In addition to the gold, authorities say they found approximately $2 million in currency and approximately 35 Rolex watches. It's unclear what Rush did specifically for the CIA, but according to the affidavit, between on or around November 2025 through on or around March 2026, Rush made several requests to the United States government to obtain a significant quantity of foreign currency and tens of millions of dollars in gold bars for work-related expenses. Rush received the currency and gold bars. Now, the document goes on to allege Rush lied about some of his education while applying for a job with the CIA. Authorities say the deceit goes back to 2009. It's unclear how he was not caught sooner, but we expect more to come out in a trial. In a joint statement, spokespeople for the CIA and FBI tell Fox News on Tuesday, May 19th, is when he was arrested after a CIA internal investigation identified potential violations of the law. CIA Director John Ratcliffe referred the information to the FBI for a law enforcement investigation. The FBI is working closely with our partners at the CIA and DOJ as we continue to investigate this matter fully. A detention hearing to determine whether David Rush can be released pending trial is scheduled for next Friday. Brett?
Okay, David, thank you. Up next.
So that's the headline. 303 gold bars, $2 million in cash, 35 Rolexes sitting in the former CIA official's home. New York Post covering it. Why ex-CIA officer David Rush's $40 million gold bar case could point to a large-scale cover-up. As expert reveals painstaking vetting process. Yes, it does get even worse.
A former senior CIA official has been arrested after FBI agents found hundreds of gold bars worth over $40 million in his Virginia home. According to court documents, David Rush made several requests to the U.S. government to obtain the bars for work-related purposes over the past year. Along with the gold bars, FBI agents also uncovered about $2 million and 35 luxury watches, many of them Rolexes, in the former official's home. Rush has also been accused of lying about his education and military service when applying for his CIA position, and of fraudulently taking military leave worth thousands of dollars in pay. According to the charges, Rush told his employers that he had been a thesis advisor at the Air Force Institute of Technology and a pilot for the Navy, neither of which were true. The former CIA official has been arrested and is being held in detention until his hearing later this week.
So it wasn't just about stolen gold. He's accused of faking key parts of his background. OC&I was not working as designed, but Tulsi was making out great progress sorting it out. Putting the CIA in charge is not the best idea given their track history of the news about one of their own with $40 million in gold bars at his home. PDB podcast even covered it.
How do you find $40 million of gold, 303 bars of gold? I believe they're 2.2 pounds. 35 Rolexes, okay? $2 million of cash. And this is not a regular CIA officer. This is a senior CIA officer that has to go through background check. Claimed he went to Clemson University. Clemson's like, we don't have this guy's name. Claimed He went to Polytech University. They don't have his name. Claimed he was a Navy pilot. He was a Navy a reservist, but he was never a pilot.
Yep.
All these claim. How does the CIA able to check? There was a girl in the story that says, I was taking $75 from my dad and my mom that were helping me out. The CIA comes and tells me, where's the $75 coming from? It says, eventually I had to report the fact that it's coming from my mommy and my dad's bank account. They said, prove it. The girl had to show. So how is it that for $75 she got away, but the other guy, $40 million sitting? And he says, I did it because I needed it for negotiation. And some things that I'm going with, right? And what's his name, Rod? David Roth?
David
or something
Rush.
like that?
Rush.
David Rush. So Ben Swan even covering it as well.
300 gold bars, roughly $40 million worth. Another $2 million in cash and dozens of luxury watches, all inside the home of a man who held top secret clearance inside the CIA. Tonight, the FBI have arrested that man, and the story surrounding him is so insane, it sounds like something out of a movie. The FBI has arrested a former senior CIA official after raiding his Virginia home. Again, what they found inside, staggering. Let's lay it out again. 300 gold bars, roughly $40 million worth, another $2 million in cash, and dozens of luxury watches. The man there, you see him, his name is David Rush. And according to federal investigators, Rush spent years requesting massive amounts of gold and foreign currency from the government for what he called work-related expenses. That's the explanation. Work-related expenses. Must be nice. Apparently, nobody asked too many questions, at least until now. The story gets even more bizarre, though. The government isn't just accusing this man of hiding gold. They say he spent nearly 20 years lying about who he was. Fake degrees, fake academic credentials, and a Navy career that never happened. And somehow, this man still climbed his way into the highest levels of the CIA with top secret access. So again, you're telling us the most powerful intelligence agency on Earth, the same agency that claims it needs mass surveillance to keep you safe, couldn't figure out that one of its own senior officials had a completely fake and fabricated background? Really? That's not just embarrassing. It tells you a lot about who has power inside the CIA. We should be clear here. The FBI says the current charges, they are mostly connected to fraud, to false timesheets, and to stolen government money. Also gold bars, but that almost makes the story even stranger, because if this man really did have access to tens of millions of dollars in gold bars through operations that he was managing, what exactly were those operations? And how does someone walk out of government storage with what is basically a Fort Knox starter kit without anyone noticing? Maybe they did notice. And there is a bigger story here as well. It's a bigger story than just someone who was able to steal $40 million in gold bars. We keep saying the number because it's nuts. The fact that no one thought it was strange that he was using $40 million in gold bars for clandestine operations, that tells you a lot about the CIA. The truth, these organizations operate like this all the time. And $40 million in gold bars, frankly, it's a drop in the bucket. This is how these operations and organizations work, in the shadows, operating on the edge of the law, and doing so with almost no oversight, not from Congress, certainly not from the American people, and not even from inside their own agency.
There's Ben Swan breaking it down. He has been arrested. Here's CNN covering it too.
New York Times is reporting on what is just a stunning arrest of a CIA official after investigators found hundreds of gold bars worth more than $40 million stashed in his Virginia home. The CIA and FBI say the arrest occurred last week after the agency alerted the FBI about potential violations of the law. And according to court documents, the official, who is identified as David Rush, asked for and received a significant quantity of foreign currency and tens of millions of dollars in gold bars for work-related expenses in recent months. When agents searched Rush's home, they found approximately 303 gold bars, each of which weighed a kilogram, approximately 2 pounds.
So CNN covering it, it's all over. See, this is the moment where the story becomes bigger than David Rush. If the allegations are true, then a senior official inside one of the most secretive agencies in the government allegedly accumulated movie villain wealth. Well, the system either missed it, ignored it, or failed to ask basic questions. That's why this scandal lands so hard right now, because Americans are already demanding answers on surveillance abuses, declassification fights, and the long record of intelligence community arrogance. Now comes the image that nobody can shake. 303 gold bars in a CIA official's home. See, that image tells the public something they already suspected, that elite institutions have operated for too long, as if the rules were for everybody else. The core question now is very simple. Who investigates the investigators? And can the cleanup finally begin? See, at the end of the day, this is why the America First movement keeps on winning the argument. Conservatives were mocked for warning that unaccountable agencies, insulated from scrutiny, would eventually expose themselves. Well, here we are. A former CIA insider behind bars, millions in cash, dozens of Rolexes, and enough gold to make the entire agency look ridiculous. See, President Trump was right to challenge the permanent bureaucracy, and stories like this show exactly why the old guard hates sunlight. The people running these institutions demanded trust while behaving like trust was optional. Not anymore. Americans want answers, prosecutions, audits, and real reform, not another shrug from the same class that always protects its own. So here's my question for you. Do you believe the CIA can honestly investigate itself after this? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments, share this report everywhere, and if you're sick of the corruption, subscribe and stay with the Next News Network for the stories the corporate media never wants pushed to the front page. But do this. See those two words? See that number? The words raw feed. The number 844-840-4963. That's how you bypass the algorithm and get the news the corporate media never wants you to see. When the algorithm fails you, when the notifications never arrive, I will not fail you. And celebrate America 250 with us. Check out the merch shelf below this video and celebrate American pride together. Man, okay, so I asked for some clarity about what this sideways moment was. He said still digging. The press room simply stated the background from the White House official. The Situation Room meeting was concluded. Lasted approximately 2 hours. President Trump will only make a deal that is good for America and satisfies his red lines. Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. That is the official readout from the 2-hour Situation Room meeting that just occurred and concluded. But other reports are saying that it went sideways. So that's the news before the news. You're hearing it here first, directly from my sources on the ground at the White House. It's likely what the main message is going to be on all the headlines tonight when the news breaks about what did happen in that Situation Room. And speaking of situations, we do need to talk about what happened with Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, let's get into it. This is not about some juvenile prank call. This is about what happens when political hatred crosses the line into tactics that can get Americans killed. Sitting U.S. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett was reportedly targeted by a swatting call claiming gunshots at her home. A lie seemingly designed to trigger an armed police rush to her doorstep. And if you think this was an isolated episode, think again, because another conservative figure, Erica Kirk, was also allegedly threatened ahead of a Turning Point USA event. So ask yourself, are we still talking about activism? Or are we dealing with organized political intimidation? And here's why this matters so much. When a false 911 caller says there are gunshots at the home of a sitting Supreme Court justice, that's not comedy. It's not the internet trolling. That's an attempt to unleash armed force through deception. Officers arrive with incomplete information, emotions are high, and one wrong move can turn into tragedy in seconds. That's why so many Americans now see swatting for what it is, violence by proxy. And the target here was not random. Amy Coney Barrett is one of the 9 justices on the highest court in the land. If judges can be personally targeted after rulings the left hates, then the question becomes bigger than one family's safety. It becomes whether institutions can function when intimidation enters private homes. Add in the threat against Erica Kirk ahead of a TPUSA event, and a pattern emerges. Conservatives are increasingly being targeted not just for what they say, but for daring to show up, to speak, and to serve. Before we go further, in times this stressful, taking care of your body, it matters too, because constant tension takes a real toll. See, you've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about people close to them who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they affect the body at a cellular level. Gibson says that plainly the stuff works. See, that got my attention in my own life. You see, I saw something similar when my wife dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety. And that's why I mention and talk about red light therapy. It really works. See, Jonathan Otto has put together resources. I'll explain why so many people are turning to it for support in daily wellness and recovery. The stuff does work. Me, my wife, we are walking proof. If you want to learn more, go to myredlight.com and make sure you use code NNN25 for individual items and NNN30 for bundles. That's myredlight.com. Now back to a story that shows exactly how toxic and dangerous our politics have become. See, what makes this even worse is not just that Barrett was targeted, but how little corporate media seemed to care. ABC reportedly gave the story just seconds, while CBS and NBC gave it nothing at all. Think about that. A sitting conservative justice gets swatted with a fake gunfire report, and major networks barely blink. That selective outrage is part of the reason so many Americans no longer trust in the legacy media. In a moment, I'm going to present the tweets, the clips that tell the story themselves, and they point to something far darker than just one call on one dark night. Another assassination attempt against a sitting conservative U.S. Supreme Court. Someone called 911. This is leftist terrorism, says Nick Sotor. Listen.
Intentional units responding to the suspicious noise. There is an LOI for this address that has 24-hour security coverage for a high-priority resident of the county. Units responding to suspicious noise. Be advised, we have not been able to get an answer on callback to the complainant's phone number. And then if it's going to be a swatting situation or not. Or 2111.
Make contact with security that's on scene. They should be outside and explore. He said he hasn't heard anything. We're just going to meet up with him first just to go over anything.
So that's all we get due to the guidelines on swatting incidents. But that is the dispatch. Made it clear police were already worried it could be swatting. So she notably signed on to the ruling against racial gerrymandering, which harms Democrats. Swatting equals attempted murder in the audio. Units responding to suspicious noise unknown if it's going to be a swatting situation. Whoever made the call committed an act of terrorism. So Barrett becomes the latest target after a ruling that hurt Democrats. Meanwhile, in Texas, threats go from a fake 911 call to alleged bomb threat, with a San Antonio man arrested over messages targeting Erica Kirk at a Turning Point event. Listen to this.
A San Antonio man was arrested today after he was accused of threatening to kill Erica Kirk ahead of a planned appearance at a Turning Point USA event. 26-year-old Jacob Winsky faces 2 felony charges of making a terroristic threat causing public fear. Investigators say he replied to a social media post about a Turning Point event by writing, "I know exactly where to bomb," and a message from an email registered to an account to Winsky allegedly stated, "Death to Erica Kirk," and every single speaker there. Certainly a disturbing case.
So it wasn't vague online trash talk. Investigators say a suspect named Erica Kirk talked about the bombing event. Now watch the corporate press, how they treat Barrett's swatting. ABC gave it seconds, while CBS and NBC said nothing at all. Bias by omission. The swatting of Justice Amy Coney Barrett draws a pitiful 16 seconds on ABC World News, 0 on CBS or NBC.
Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett becoming the latest high-profile target of a swatting incident. Authorities say a false emergency call sent police rushing to her home. It's just the latest in a growing wave of hoax threats targeting public officials. The incident is now under investigation.
That's all they got. 16 seconds. 16 seconds. Everybody else just ignored it. Will Cain did mention it.
Fox News alert. Last night at around 9 p.m., officers responded to a swatting call at the home of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Officers coordinated with Coney Barrett's security and quickly determined that the report was fake. Many of the justices now have 24-hour security detail. The court has yet to weigh in formally, and no mention from Justice Coney Barrett herself either when she was on the bench this morning.
So Will Cain walking through the timeline from the fake gunfire report to the officers coordinating. One America News adds the piece the networks won't touch.
The D.C. home of Justice Amy Coney Barrett is reportedly the target of a swatting call. Police responded to reports of gunfire at the home Wednesday night. Officers spoke with security at the residence and quickly learned the call was a false report. Barrett's home has been the site of protests by pro-abortion advocates in the past. Senator Mike Lee weighed in on the report, saying swatting is an attempt to get an innocent person killed, in this case, a sitting Supreme Court justice. He suggests a proper response will be putting the offender in prison for many years.
So we have more on the Erica Kirk threat.
Breaking moments ago, a man reportedly accused of threatening to kill Erica Kirk. He is under arrest in Texas, according to local media. Police reportedly saying he posted about a bombing at a Turning Point USA event where Kirk is scheduled to speak next week. TPUSA says the event will go on. Senior correspondent Alicia Cunha live in Denver. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Martha. And this threat not only targeted Erica Kirk, but Turning Point USA events across the board. News stations in Texas report Jacob Wensky of San Antonio was arrested earlier today and now faces 2 felony counts for making terrorist threats against Erica Kirk and TPUSA's upcoming women's leadership event in that city. According to local reports, San Antonio police were alerted to Wensky after he allegedly commented on social media, quote, "I know exactly where to bomb." Investigators, according to reporting, say he also wrote in an email, quote, "Death to Erica Kirk and every single speaker there. America will live on without those scum of this earth. Every Christian nationalist shall perish in the bombing that will take place at every single Turning Point rally and event." TPUSA responded to the arrest on X, saying the organization takes all threats seriously and is working with law enforcement, adding, quote, "We are grateful to the San Antonio Police Department and the FBI for their rapid response and arrest of the individual making these threats. We refuse to let threats silence us. We look forward to a successful and inspiring gathering." Erica Kirk, her family, and the organization she now runs have been under near constant hostility by critics ever since Charlie was assassinated in September. Charlie Kirk's accused killer, Tyler Robinson, is scheduled for his preliminary hearing in early July. Erica Kirk has been pushing for maximum transparency with the public in that case. As for the San Antonio suspect, his next court appearance is set for August. Martha?
And I'll add that Candace Owens isn't helping the situation one bit. So this is the real point. America is moving into a period where political conflicts no longer staying in debate halls, court briefs, or campaign ads. It's moving to front doors, family homes, and public events. The swatting attack on Amy Coney Barrett and terror threats against Erica Kirk are connected by the same goal: create fear, force retreat, and make conservatives think twice before serving, speaking, or standing firm. That's intimidation, plain and simple. And when the media minimize it because the targets are on the right, they do not calm the country down, they help normalize the behavior. If this continues, the danger is not just to individuals, the danger is to the ability of our institutions to operate without coercion. But the good news is this: Americans are waking up. Under President Trump, law and order is back at the center of national leadership. And there is zero excuse for treating swatting, bomb threats, or assassination talk like background noise. Whoever targeted Justice Barrett should be found and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Whoever threatened Erica Kirk is now facing charges, and that is exactly what should happen when terror tactics are aimed at conservatives. This country cannot function if judges, activists, and speakers have to wonder whether a ruling, a speech, or a post will bring armed chaos to their homes or events. We do not surrender to fear, and we do not let left-wing intimidation become normal. If you agree, share this report everywhere, subscribe to the Next News Network, and sound off in the comments yes or no. Should swatting a public official be prosecuted like attempted murder? I want to hear from you. I also want you to text the words raw feed to that number you see right there on your screen. Take a look, 844-840-4963. That's how you and I stay connected when the algorithm has other plans. And since we are in our 250th year of our great republic, let's celebrate together. I want to celebrate with you. Check out some of our new gear in the merch shelf below this video. So I have no new updates on what happened in the Situation Room, but all indications appear something went totally south. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they got sidelined. If you're just joining us, the initial report that I got, someone disrupted the peace deal that we were waiting all day for after he said he was going to the Situation Room for a final determination. I'm not sure who that someone is. Someone disrupted the peace deal. That's all I got. And the White House is being absolutely vague on the whole situation with their official read from the room. The Situation Room meeting has concluded and lasts approximately 2 hours. President Trump will only make a deal that is good for America and satisfies his red lines. Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. So, also, looks like we will hear something happening in Cuba. As you know, we've been tracking what's going on in Cuba, and aircraft carrier groups are not far off their coast, and I do have knowledge that there are troops that are actively training in South Florida, just like they did ahead of the Venezuelan extraction of Maduro. So it looks like something is going to pop off in Cuba very, very soon, just as we are beginning to wrap up Iran. I'm not sure if President Trump is attempting to put a bow on the Iran deal and then shift his sights completely to Cuba. I know he can walk and chew gum at the same time, but we'll have to wait and see. But we did know that Venezuela happened and then Iran happened. But will Iran still be simmering while Cuba pops off? Maybe that's exactly what he's waiting for. Maybe he's waiting for the moment for that deal to be locked in so he can focus exclusively on Cuba. But of course, the Cuban people who are in exile here in the United States are certainly celebrating the move. I know that there are a lot of people who don't agree with the president's current MAGA doctrine foreign policy, but he's doing things that are going to secure America's future for the long run. We have to kind of look at this long game that he's playing here, securing the Western Hemisphere. And you got to think about what he's done, right? Securing the Venezuelan oil fields, amplifying the oil and energy exporting of the United States, locking down Iran, opening up the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, it's a massive, massive global chess game. And President Trump executing the art of the deal on the global stage. Tom and Bella, thank you for that $5. We appreciate you. But that's all I got for you tonight on this Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday with more news. And I hope you'll join us then. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.